Hello and welcome to Hopeful Conversations. I'm Vicky Montague and today I am joined by Sally Trussler. And Sally is somebody, like many of my guests on the podcast, that I don't even remember how we met. I think it might have been in Claire Diamond's membership, possibly. So we were both kind of exploring non-duality with Claire Diamond, and there must have been something that you said that intrigued me, and we hopped on a call and we kind of connected. And then I remember at one point, I was quite into running at that stage. I was sort of going out on small runs, but like daily runs out every day, every morning. And I can't remember whether I'd developed some sort of knee problem or a hip problem. Anyway, it doesn't even matter. But I remember reaching out to you because of your expertise in physio and rehab and movement and how the body works. And you said, send me a video, just walk up and down, send me a video wearing leggings and a t-shirt or whatever. Just walk up and down the room and then send it to me and I'll have a look. And I remember being completely blown away by your response, because you said you'd looked at the video like 3 or 4 times and then you'd spotted this tiny little thing that I was doing, or some movement that was happening that was basically the source of the issue. And I remember you circling it on the video, and I couldn't even see what you were like you could see. And I just thought, wow, that's an amazing. It's one of those things I always think that we all seem to be born with an inbuilt talent, like something that there's a skill that we have and we don't always recognize it because it's super easy to us. And so it's like, we think that everyone can do that thing. It's so normal. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, but that's nothing special. I mean, it's obvious. And we kind of overlook it, and often it never becomes anything that we do in our sort of day-to-day job. We don't kind of monetize it, if you like, because it seems too easy and simple and whatever. But I think what I can see in you is that skill is exactly what you have then brought into your work, if you like.
Yeah.
And you were just beginning to say, and I was like, no, you've got to stop because we haven't hit record yet, but you were just beginning to say how innate that observation of the body and its movement is to you. And so I would love to just hand over to you and for you to just tell us a little bit about, firstly, exactly what you do and what you do offer, but then I'd love to just unpick that thing that you have that's kind of innate within you, that's kind of just natural.
Wow, I'd never seen it like that. Yeah, like you said, so just to clarify, I'm not a physio, not a chiropractor, anything like that. My journey into like biomechanics, or how the human body moves, was actually through just hating my job years ago. I always flitted from one job to another, like office-based stuff. And I was just like, I hate what I do. And then I had a thought literally out of the blue. This is about 15 years ago. And I knew that I needed a job that it was like a trade. So it was something that I could do anywhere. It would be a trade that no one else that I knew did. And it was a trade that, I could basically just work for myself. And literally massage just came into my head. And I'd never even had a massage. So this is like random. And I remember saying to my brother at the time, like, oh, I'm going to go and do this massage course in London. And he went, why would you do that? Like, how are you ever going to make any money? Why would you do that? And I was a bit like, oh yeah. Anyway, I went to this course in London, and I didn't even know I was interested in like anatomy. I mean, I've always been sporty, so I was running and doing sports and stuff. But there was being in that classroom, and it wasn't just about like learning massage, and this was like just sort of basic holistic massage at the time, but it was all the anatomy and physiology side. So it was like learning about the blood, learning about like the bones, and like looking at all the internal structures. And there was this amazing teacher, and she was just like full of like, being in the classroom and learning about stuff like that was like, my brain just lit up, like, wow, this is really interesting. And I enjoyed the massage, and that was good. But the teacher said to me, you need to go and do a high level sports massage course, because she said you've got you do a lot of sport, go and do that. She said you're going to learn like an exponential amount of like really good stuff. So I did this really long course up in London, sports massage diploma, and blew like, you get to get really good with your hands in terms of feeling, we call it palpation, so feeling tissue on, obviously, on a body. And but then there's all these other skills that go along with it, like assessing joints, looking at, say, someone maybe, doing like exercises, like what are you looking for if someone has, problems, etc. And that was all amazing. And that was my journey into like, wow, this is where I'm going. So then I just started doing loads of sports massages. I was working in a practice up in Clifton in Bristol. And it was all great. But then I was like, oh, I quite like to like move, more into, I want to get people off the table and like look at them more like standing, moving around. And so then I became a personal trainer. So I went and trained as a personal trainer. Wasn't interested in personal training people. I was interested in people who had problems moving. So I wasn't interested in weight loss clients or like people who wanted to get stronger. It was like I just injured people. So then that kind of started. And then I was like, oh, this is great. And then I saw this guy in London, and he was doing this like become, like he was like a run school, and he did this like become a master run coach. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to become a master run coach, whatever that means. And so I was in London, and what was great, that was the starting point of his school he has in London. It's quite famous. He's trained loads of like top athletes, etc. But the main thing I took away from that was like, it was the analysis of someone. So often it would be on a treadmill type environment. So a runner would come in, usually injured, or they want to get faster or whatever. And then you're filming them on a treadmill. So from behind, from the side. And so that was when it started, that observation of, here's a body moving very quickly. And obviously with clever apps, you can slow it down and speed it up, etc. But you're just starting to observe patterns of like, well, the skeleton can actually only do X, Y, Z. And then how is someone, doing something on the left, which they're not doing on the right? So you're just looking at shapes. And so that for me was just fantastic. So I did years of like running analysis, helping people like change their running style. And then I was like, oh, this is all good. And I'm building up this like, unawarely, like building up all this knowledge, I suppose. And then I was like, oh, I feel like this is good, but you could try stuff on somebody and, they weren't really changing, or like, people would have this problem and that didn't seem to go away if I did this. And then I was always having like repetitive injuries on my body. And I was, I was quite active at the time, but I remember having this shoulder problem for years, like forever. And I used to work in a centre with loads of physios and all the top specialists and people who had lots of letters after their names and things like that. And all of them would do the same treatment on my shoulder. And a lot of it involved like rubbing the shoulder. There were shoulder exercises. One guy, I think, remember he sort of saying, oh, you've got really weak glutes. And I was a personal trainer at the time. So I was like, I was pretty strong. And so, it was like literally you go from one person to another and everyone was just saying something different. So it's like, oh, it's problem with this, problem with this. This shoulder thing never changed. It was always there. Every time I rode my bike, I had a right shoulder pain. And then for some reason, I came across this book, and it was called What the Foot, WTF, hashtag, which I loved. And I'm quite dyslexic in terms of reading. I don't like really fine print in like books. I find it like ugh. And it was the first like anatomy, like biomechanics book, which was just this. The way it was laid out was amazing and well written and clever, and used quite like strong language. He kind of talked about his rants. I loved it. We started the book with his rants about the whole industry as a whole and how we treat the body. I was like, oh, I love this. And so I didn't even finish the book. I contacted him, managed to book an appointment to see him and went off to London. It was a 2.5-hour session, cost me £500. This guy's really living in Bali now, by the way, teaches all around the world, and he's incredible, like the most sought after, like professional, like I'm like as a movement professional online. And but I was lucky, I suppose, back in the day. I managed to get in and see him, because I was like, who is this guy? What's he talking about? And that moment changed my life, because I walked in there and I was like, yeah, I've got this shoulder thing, maybe a couple of other things, whatever. And he filmed me walk up and down, videoed me walk. And then he did a few like assessments, like on the table, like on a massage table, just like with my feet, hips. And then everything was upright standing, and he moved the hell out of my entire body in a way that I've never had since, never been able to recreate myself. But he was like, you can't side bend your spine left. You can't do X, Y, Z with this foot. You can't do X, Y, Z with this right foot, this foot, or left foot. You can't do this with this elbow, blah, 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 blah. And then when I saw it on the video and he's slowing it down, he's like, look, your shoulder only ever stays high on this side. It never gets to go low because you can't side bend. And then we were moving, and I left there just like, I felt like I had an entire new body. He mobilized my feet. I felt like it was like he put all my bones back into place. That wasn't him. He did a lot of foot mobilization, but then it was all movement based. So nothing magical, just he knew his stuff. And that's why he's, does what he does. And I left that, and then I went on all his courses. Ever since then, there's been a network of all of us who've trained under him, and obviously gone on to meet lots of other amazing people around the world who also are amazing movement coaches who teach biomechanics. And I suppose from that was then the core of then now I look at someone, and walking is the easiest way to assess someone, because you can't cheat it. You can't try and walk in a different way, as much as your brain might say, oh, I'm going to try and walk normally. People often say you can't cheat it. You're just walking. And what happens is even if you take away all the anatomy, words, whatever, you're just looking at shapes. And his biggest thing is like, does it change shape? And if something doesn't change shape, then you know that there's no movement in that area. So you could have whatever pain going on in your shoulder, your back, your knee, your foot, whatever. But if it's like, you've got to look at the whole skeleton. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, and you just go for that one area, especially like, I suppose the worst one would be like a knee, for example, or a neck, or a shoulder's probably like, they're the kind of common grumbles, or the back. God, you start going everywhere, every day.
Everywhere.
But if then my old school of thought would obviously be, oh, you lie on a massage table, oh, your shoulder hurts, of course, massage it, this hurts, release it, whatever. Yeah. And then of course the person gets off the table and they walk straight back into the same body they came in on, because nothing's changed. Like the tone of the tissue might have just relaxed a bit, but it will go exactly where it was. There's no input to the brain or the skeleton of like any change whatsoever. And so that for me that's just game change. And I suppose what you just said at the beginning there, so some people often see me and they say, oh, you're so holistic. And I'm like, no, this is just common sense. This is just, you come in, I'm going to look at all of you, and I'm just going to sort of start to work out what is the thing. A mentor of mine talks about, just find the elephant in the room, and it might have absolutely nothing to do with like, oh, their knee hurts. But if they're standing there like this, you're going, why is that up there? And then you're like, because if you're just side bending all day, of course your knee's going to hurt, because all your weight is side bending into one side of your body. And then of course, then you start asking questions like, have you got any history here? Have you broken a collarbone, broken your elbow? Oh yeah, I did that like 10 years ago. Oh, that's fine. I've got a problem down here. Yeah. And I love that, because you're like, that's the dissociation we have, like as humans, of this, like, oh, I broke something or I sprained it. And then, oh, that's fine. It's better. That's it. Oh, that's not the problem. And it's so hard. Like some people really see it and they go, oh my God, like that doesn't move. And then some people are wowed by it, and some people it's like, They don't want to know, because then that's like, oh, hang on a minute, feels like it's going down a rabbit warren that I don't have time for. I don't have like whatever. No, just solve this issue.
Yeah.
I can't. This is the issue. It's like, and so some people love that approach of like, we're going to look at this, and other people, it's a real no. And then that's what's amazing to me, because I'm always like, wow, look at this, can you see how like this, like look at this compared to look at this, and some people don't see it, like they're like, oh yeah, that's the same. It's like, and then to me, I'm like, oh my god, that's not the same. And I've had to really reel that in myself, because I realize, and this is something my mentor is very good at, where if someone doesn't see it, it's like they don't see it. I can't be like, see this. And also it's just like, I always like, do you see this? And if it's a no, then that's just what I'm seeing. So it's like, that's fine. Find something that they connect to and go, oh yeah, I can do that left, but I can't do it right. So a simple example would be someone just standing up, and then it'll be like, can you rotate your pelvis left and right? And some people go, oh yeah, actually it's easier that way and not so easy that way. And you're like, great. So there's something you can connect into and go, well, ideally we'd like to be able to rotate left and right, similarly, if that's a word. Yeah. So yeah, so that's and then to go even deeper, so then my world became obviously gait analysis and looking and observing people, and then it just even goes into way deeper level than that. Like I work with some amazing people, and this has been mostly about, this is my body, so I'm the the guinea pig, if you like.
Yeah.
It's me. It's like, what am I internally feeling when I do something? Like how am I internalizing someone who's giving me cues on how to move something, or do something, and experience like this movement, and so now it's become so much deeper in terms of like how the body and the brain, and how observant we can get to in our heads of imagination, looking at pictures of anatomy, understanding shapes. And even like from that kind of perspective, when you work with people and go, if you look at the muscle, look at this shape, and then now when I'm moving you, I want you to make this shape of this muscle in your mind with your leg. And you see the like, there's a totally different relationship to like, how I'm moving. And it's so amazing, and I'm so grateful for my work. But interestingly, it's not about, I love helping people if they want help from me, but it's all been about, I realize the journey of everything, it's all been about me, because I want to feel like good, and I don't want to be, I don't want to have this shoulder pain, or I don't want to have, and it's been a massive journey of unraveling from all the injuries I've had since I was younger, and snowboarding accidents, mountain biking accidents, like breaking bones, and I've just been unraveling all of that. And it's for me, it's like the best thing, someone can do. And I spend a lot of time on my body and exploring it and moving it. And I just realized, though, that's not I just saw a lady now, and she was like, oh, I've done 10 minutes of homework since I last saw you last week. Like, so the level of like attention to detail, obviously from people is hugely varying. But sorry, that went off on a tangent, so I don't know where I am now with that.
No, I just think it's really fascinating. Sorry, dog's barking. I don't know whether you can hear that. But just that whole, when I was hearing you talk about, kind of getting to the source of the issue, whereas we're so used to in the medical system of just having something that treats the thing. So like you say, like we're so kind of brought up with there's something wrong here in my body. I'm going to the doctors, they're going to look at here in my body, and they're going to treat this in my, right here, but never look at what's causing that thing in the body.
And when people see me, and I send them a form, and it will say like, what's your issues? What are your issues? And body issues. And that it's interesting because I have a medical box, like, you know, are you on any medication? Like, are there any other stuff going on, like, you know, inside? And it's so, what's interesting is that this is all like, everything's just happening in here. Yeah. There's no, it's not, it's like, so whether it's stomach, breathing, you might have one ear waxed in one ear, not the other. You might have a funny rash on an arm somewhere, but you don't have it anywhere else. And all of that is the same. It's in here, and it's the same principle, isn't it? Like, the whole thing needs to be looked at. And it's interesting to think of, like, the way that our body's holding itself in terms of like its posture, whatever that means. But it's like how that affects all the pipe work inside. Like, you know, like kink. And my friend calls it, like, she's like, yeah, well, there's kinks in the pipe. Look, like if someone's got a really forward head posture, or like, you know, they're really, you know, been sitting all day and they're just like maybe really compressed through their like lower ribs or something. You can imagine then the digestive system is like, how can it work? Like, how can it pump? And it's interesting, like one of the things I've really learned through my mentor, and he does like a lot of Chinese medicine, etc. And he's like, always number one thing anywhere with pain, or even medical staff, where's blood flowing and where's blood not flowing? And you can see it in skin. So you'll see where someone's got like really healthy skin, amazing color, and you can touch fingernails and you can see the refill of blood. And you can see when someone's had an injury or they've got an area of their body they're not using, you'll see that the color of the skin is different. You'll see the the pump is different. You know, you see this you know, and you think, how can you have that area? Can't be, it will be stagnant, it will be. And then if it's stagnant, then the brain is almost like it's a missing area of the brain because it's not getting any feedback from that area.
Yeah.
And so, and then you start to realize like how so many issues, they're the same, like movement and like almost like internal stuff, they should almost be like overlaid over each other, and they should almost be like a kind of, so you've got this issue abdomen wise, whatever, but then definitely you want to be looking at gripping patterns through the abdominals, like looking at the diaphragm, what's the rib cage doing, where's the pelvis sitting over the ankles? Because if it isn't, you're in a position where you can't use your internal things. And I find that just that in itself is like, so interestingly, health wise, it's like even going from like a women's health issue, when I used to always think of like, you know, like going a bit off here, but like long history of like heavy periods and endometriosis words and that kind of thing in my life. And then when I started seeing my mentor in London and him coming from a Chinese medicine perspective, he was way more interested in symptoms of that in regards to like other symptoms I was feeling. And he'd always ask me like, tell me if your periods change or anything changes if we do work around your breathing and if we can get some length and extension through your spine. And when you start to look at it from that perspective, because well, you know this, but I'm a big cyclist, so I spend a lot of time flex. And it's incredible because I see so many women in the same place who pelvic floor, everything's short, you shorten through the abdominals, and you're putting so much kind of like, there's so much load going through that really sensitive organ at the front of your body, which we just don't perceive. It's like it's separate, like that's something else. And it's like, I just never in a million years would have connected, like, how am I posturally holding myself, not me intentionally holding myself, how the body is holding itself through conditioned, learned patterns. And that the fact that I could actually be the way I could actually move in a way that would take pressure off and allow there to be movement for, you know, for that area to be like less under tension. And to think about it like that is like, yeah, it's quite mind-blowing really. But yeah.
So yeah, I'm really curious. I'm really curious about like how do you then, so someone presents with something.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to plug you in.
That's all right. How do you go about, obviously you quite quickly from the sounds of it, can kind of track back to the source of whatever. And then what does it look like to kind of reverse that, kind of put the body back into its, you know?
I wouldn't say it's easy. It can be easy to assess and go, oh, okay, someone's standing, I don't know, like this, or rotated or whatever. That's kind of almost like as a glance, you could look at someone and say, okay, this. But in terms of source, I think what I realize, and I think maybe you might, I think you'll recognize this in terms of like learning with Claire, but you don't know. There's actually no knowing of why the person is in that position. And so you can make a sort of smart guess, because you could go, okay, they broke their leg. They've had like numerous ankle sprains. And so therefore you can see how the body's changed, adapted itself to get weight off that leg and then go the other way. And I think that's another thing to think about in pain, is that when we've broken something or sprained something, the body heals itself and it does an amazing job at it fixes the tissue, which is incredible in itself, but it doesn't revert you back to how you were movement wise. So if it's unweighted an ankle, for example, and then say like you put 70% of your weight on the other leg to unweight that foot, and then you might have actually turned that foot out and then actually even taken your whole leg out to the side to keep that foot way over there so that I don't put any weight on it. That will heal, all the ligaments will heal, tissue will heal, but the body doesn't then just go, oh, I'll bring that foot back underneath me, and then it just doesn't work like that. And like someone in a sling, and then they've been like this for like 6 weeks, and then the arm isn't suddenly like spiraling, it's suddenly like the brain is perceiving it in this shape, so it becomes quite a wooden structure. Where was I going with that? So where do I start with someone? So say for example, like you can make an intelligent guess. It has to be a guess, because there actually isn't a knowing why someone's in pain, because you could have someone who's had MRIs, bulging discs, whatever like label you want to give it, and people can be in very little pain, and you can have someone who has something else going on and they could be in a tremendous amount of pain. And so there's no actually real knowing of truth about what actually, like you come in and say, oh, my knee hurts. And I feel like that's where we're missing the link in terms of helping people, because people want a diagnosis. Like you go to a doctor, like I want a diagnosis, and then and with the body, I never say to anybody like, you've got this. It's like, all I say, there's pain here, we just like, there's pain there, that's all we know. We don't, we're not going to label it, I'm not going to give it any whatever. It's like, we're just going to figure out why it's like that, and then all we do is we just start to assess, and that's always standing, moving, and generally the way I'll assess someone is based on what we do walking. So can you side bend left to right, can you rotate your pelvis, can your foot do X, Y, and Z? But it's the other part of the parcel. It might be easy to zoom out and like look at things, but to then start to change that isn't, again, it's not, the change is not like right now I can just sort that. It's then a process of learning, and that's my learning of the person, but the person also then learning about themselves, because when it becomes like, right, I want to change this, so this hip isn't doing X, Y, Z, and then for the person then who doesn't even know where their hip is, because often someone will point to the outside of their leg, or it's so, we're living in our bodies, which is so abstract. Like we have you might be able to look at it and go, oh yeah, that's what it looks like, but you don't know what it looks like inside. It's like totally like, what does the tissue look like? What do the shape of the bones look like? And I don't know if you've ever watched, I mean, my husband cringes at me watching this, but I watched that live surgery on the telly, and they were inside like someone's brain, the head off. Like this was just on BBC the other day, and I'm just like, I am just mesmerized, like because you're seeing this is it's blood, it's water, it's moving, it's living stuff. And I think sometimes we think of it as like this hard, it can break, like, I don't know, we have like everyone has a very different idea about what their body is. And then, so if you're then trying to say to someone in an abstract way, like how right now we're going to move the hip, and then they don't really even know in their head where their hip is, what it looks like what's it connected to, like I don't. And so there's a learning process then, because someone's got to be invested in, like, I want to take this on, oh yeah, okay, start to understand like how we're going to move and how it's going to change. And then also I think the process being is you can change something or help, you can see that structurally, okay, now the hip was hiked and now it's level. But it's almost like an onion, because you don't know what input that's going to have on the rest of the skeleton. Hopefully it will be like, that feels nice. And then another thing my mentor says, it will always unravel the next thing, because it's like something, it's like, he said, try and get rid of the noise. So there'll be like this, especially when someone comes in and they've got loads of things going on. It's like, this hurts, this hurts, this. There's a process of like, can I quieten down all the noise, and then the thing will pop out of what is the thing that's actually driving all of this noise. And that can take, and I realize, and the biggest thing I think I don't want to say I failed on, or I feel like this is the biggest trigger for me, is that I used to believe years ago that I could do this, like this is a quick thing, like I could, because I could see all this stuff. I used to believe like, oh yeah, I can change all of this. And I realized that is impossible. And it's interesting, because I've been working with my mentor now for like 15 years. I've known him for 15 years. And I realized there's no end date to working with him. There's no, oh, now I'm fixed, I'm done, and then I just walk away and never see him again. It's a process of, he knows my body in terms of my movement, like my health, my mind, more than I know myself. And to be able to go into a room and trust someone enough where they just innately can just like see you and notice that something's changed, or asking you very different questions as to like, what's going on, rather than your bog standard, oh my foot hurts, sort it out. It's never that. And working, and so then I realized it's a massive journey, and finding those people you can work with who are always giving you something that you take away and you're learning, and you can feel the difference in your body when you're doing this stuff, is like, yeah, it's an amazing space to be. So definitely not easy,
No.
but easy, but nice. Yeah, but yeah, simple but not easy. That's what my friend always says, like a kind of
like everything.
Yeah, like everything. Yeah. So yeah, no, that it's an interesting one, because it seems easy, and I realize but it's interesting, like, and like, you'll know from my language with this, but how easy it is to compare yourself to other people. So I know incredible trainers and people who work, way, and I would say, compared to me, I feel like a blip compared to some people's knowledge, and people who've literally given up I don't want to say given up their lives, but they've invested their whole life is knowledge of learning anatomy. Like, they're so deep in it that there is literally nothing else. Their whole life is going so deep into what is this thing in the body, how does it move? And that in itself is, I'm so grateful that I understand that people do that, and then question the status quo, because then they'll go, hang on a minute, this anatomy book isn't right. And people don't question it, because we just learn stuff, don't we? We just take it on. And then some people work by that, so then they might not. So say, for example, like I don't know, any profession, if you don't continue learning, you'll just do that same thing, say the same thing over and over again. And obviously for some people it might be great and that's all they need. But if you're looking for more, I always feel like I see the people who say, I've seen everyone and I don't know what to do. And that's the kind, I feel like then I'm like the last, oh, now you come in, and then it's like, I'm just going to show you a fresh perspective and you can take it or leave it, and I will help you in whatever way I can, but I'm not going to tell you anything. Like, I'm just going to say what I see, I'm going to tell you what I see, and then we're just going to go from there.
And I love what you said, which I think is really key to kind of hone in on, is that you can't do it. Like, you can't make the change happen for somebody. And it's
No.
exactly the same, you know, in the work that I do. It's like, I can't make anyone different. No one can make anyone different.
No.
Like, whatever they think, it's not, that's just not ever possible. We can't change
No.
other people. And so I guess it is that whole thing of coming back to oneself. And
Yeah.
like you say, you're almost at the end of people's journeys, is because they've gone and they've tried to be fixed by someone else, and they've got to the point where that hasn't worked, and then it's like last resort kind of. And that's kind of how I see a lot of the work that I do. People have gone through, you know, every type of therapy that's possible
Yeah. Yeah.
to come back to, oh yeah, like this isn't, no one else can do this for me. It's got to be coming
Yeah.
from
It's
me.
yeah. And it's a really hard realization. And I think some people, that's a real suffering then, a desperation to be better. And I really understand that, especially when someone's in pain, because I've been there, like, you know, I've had the back where, you know, I couldn't get out of bed, and the whole, you know, scare of like, what's this, etc. So I totally understand the fear and the desperation to get out of pain, but also we don't actually have any control over like whether or not the body's in pain. Like there actually is very little control. The body doesn't care if you want to run or you want to go and do XYZ. Like, it literally doesn't care. It's like, it needs, so whatever, but the pain is telling you, like, clearly it's like a message, like, stop, and something needs to change. And whether you have to sit and wait it out for a bit, you need intervention of like, someone's got to help figure out why, you know, that happened in the first place, and start looking at ways to change. It's like that, there's no that idea that somehow I'm in control of this is, and that is
Crazy.
interesting. And I suppose with Claire's words, and obviously, like, you know, you are amazing and I love your writing, and it's so interesting because it's exactly the same from a body. Like, there's no it's not something for you to be like, oh, it's got to do this, or I'm going to make it do this. And I suppose we try to, because obviously we can push it and abuse it and make it like, you can decide to go running and be in pain. Fine, you do what you like. I never tell anyone not to do anything, but yeah, if that's how you're going to do it, then you're just, obviously at some point you're going to run out. Something's going to just not be happy, and then you're going to just end up in a worse space later on.
I'm really curious about the pain thing, because like the sort of you know, immediate pain that we get, I get that. But do you see people who have had long-term chronic pain conditions that where it's the body's just got stuck into like a pain response, and it's actually like the mind's kind of getting involved there? So there's like a sort of there's the initial injury which creates the pain, but then the injury heals, but the pain, like the mind has created a thing about, like, how do you
there are cases where I've seen horrendous pain cycles, like even some of to the point where I know there was a lady I saw years ago who I referred on to a few other people, but she hadn't left the house in, I don't know how long. She was really young. She was like, I think she was younger than me, and she hadn't left the house. Incredible amount of pain in her head and neck, and it's I don't really know if I know the answer to that, but there is definitely a because for me it's like, I'm seeing it from a structural perspective, because structurally, if if things were like imbalanced, technically, where's the pain? Because if there's no pressure on something, then there can there be pain? But if someone, I think then that comes into like a kind of a core psychological stuck in a, because the enormous stress of being in pain in itself is like a constriction. So if that then is the overriding, and I suppose it's then the not seeing that, because then I suppose if there's a seeing that you see the correlation between that and that, then there's a space that you can start going, you can zoom out, and then you can, how do I work on all of these things? But yeah, it is an interesting one, pain, because there will be definite structural pain, but also likewise psychological pain. The immediate position that someone will go into is flexion, because that's that. And as soon as you're in flexion, it's like that's constriction of everything internal, as well as the body, but also the internal is going to struggle. So it's interesting to think, like, the heart would even struggle to beat in a constricted environment, and so blood flow, and then you can feel how that panic of like the body's trying to survive, and then it's like the enormous weight of the mind going, whatever's going on would be
interpreting everything and making up that this is happening because of that, and
and then totally lost, because again it doesn't know.
No, and I love what you said about how you don't diagnose anything. You just simply stay with the facts, which is there's this pain here, or there's this, because that's it. That's all that's actually known, isn't it? It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter how much training you've got. You still don't know for that body in front of you what's going on. You can't.
No.
It's your mind is creating a picture based on knowledge and information that it's picked up, but it's not known, is it? Like you say, and to stay in that unknown place, I think, is amazing. Like you were describing about, just I don't know.
Not easy though. And I think that's where it's always been. I think working. I mean, I think as I'm getting older and just way more happy with that not knowing, whereas before that was my huge amount of attention for me, for sure. Because I did want to fix people. I wanted to be like, could I just, because it seems like such a simple thing, but you realize like the amount of time I spend with someone, or yourself, like it's in the grand scheme of like life, it's like it's so small, like unless you were here, I don't know, 7 days a week, and and also that's overload. Your body can't consume that kind of information or detail, but it's like it's just you can impact whatever I do in that hour or 2 hours that I spend with someone. It's like we just do what we do, and based on how whatever is going on in that moment, because I don't have control. I might go, all right, I've got a plan, I'm going to do this, this and this. 9 times out of 10 that goes out the window, because someone could come in feeling awful, like they've had a crap night's sleep, something bad's happened in their life, and often then someone just wants to talk, and so then they're just talking, and you can see like, they feel better because then they've spoken, and then just do what needs to be done, and it changes all the time.
I just want to bring you back to you were saying about I've completely lost what you said. It was around no, it's gone. That's so annoying. It was juicy.
I was so like that at the moment.
Damn hormones.
Oh my God, honestly, that's the only conversation that came up at dinner with friends last night was hormones. We were all talking then and go, what was I talking about again?
No, it's so annoying, isn't it? It's like, that was really, it was good. But anyway, hey, it's gone. So
it will come back.
It will come back. I want to bring it back. I want to bring it to me. Because I'm really curious.
Yes.
I'm totally curious. So, because, for anyone listening to this, they'll be like, wow, it's really interesting. Like, the body is so complex and we don't understand it. And so I'm just thinking, for me, like, I think we've probably talked before, like I've had like digestive issues for as long as I can remember, really, since my teens. And you just kind of made something go in my head of like, when you were talking about endometriosis and like that kind of, you know, pressure on that area and then it not being able to work properly. Do you, is that, you know, do people generally come to you about like a, you know, sort of injury kind of pain, or does it go to that extent?
It would never be about the digestive
No.
issue. No, totally. It would be like, I've got an injury.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because then you just said like you've had this digestive thing, but it sounds like it wasn't always there. There was a point where you were fine, and then you had a digestive problem. And so I think the first question I would always ask in that is like, around that time, if you ever remember the time that you started to get those issues, was there ever a trauma to the body? As in, it could have been a head injury, whiplash, fall on your coccyx, anything. So that would be always like my number one questioning, because has there been an impact to the body? And that could always be trauma. So a big thing happens which takes the air out of you. It's like a constriction feeling, and then you're just like, is there a time, whatever happened, was there something that happened to the body around that time to change something internally or physically, you know, like structurally? So that would be my first question around that. And then also just, you know, whatever, and again, we don't know, so it's just a whatever. But if there was like digestion things going on, I think the biggest thing I see, and I mostly see it with women who've had children, and is you see that the restriction at the back of the pelvic floor, the pelvis sort of tucked under and the glutes like under, and then the belly kind of either sucked in or the pelvis is pushed forward. And so it just becomes like an area of like, it's a holding area. And especially, I mean, I've never had children, but I've seen how women hold themselves. And also from a cyclist perspective, it's really similar. There's this like, and I think that's also from a women's perspective. Like, I always remember when I was younger, and I don't know if you did this, like the skinny jean and you'd have your belly out kind of thing. A bit like Britney Spears, I suppose, was the kind of, and how many of us hold our stomach in because it's like,
it's a total learned thing.
Whether that's happening again subconsciously, you might be like, oh, I need to hold my stomach in, and then obviously over time that's just like a full on, that is ingrained in you. And then start, even when I say to people stand, and then I say let go of your stomach, it's almost like impossible, because it's like they do it, and because the stomach does this thing which feels like unsightly, or I don't want that, it's just sucked back in again, and there's no knowing that is happening. And it's the same with the glutes, same with the pelvic floor, and same with that, like those would be, they're the main areas. But you see it, and it's just interesting when you think of that, like like structurally, especially the job of the abdominals, where they attach at the top of like the bottom of the sternum bone, they attach on the pubic bone, and the idea of being able to lengthen that abdominal and for it to be able to fully shorten, you rarely ever see that in somebody. And that muscle sits like vertically at the front of the body, and it's something that we should, like, it's like a trampoline in the body, like think about, like, you should be able to load into something and bounce back, and you should be able to fall into tissue. And the that abdominal wall, you see it short in some bits, long in the others, short here, long, well, quite rarely long there, but it's restricted in different bits. It's just so interesting from a food perspective, or digestion and the diaphragm, because it needs to be able to contract and lift underneath the rib cage without the rib cage flaring and dropping back. So all plumbing.
And so if you have
keep in the pipe. But again, no knowing if that would help your digestion issues, but it's an avenue that you could go down and explore and have, like, go wow, and like learn a load of stuff on the way, probably feel great as a result, because you'll be like, oh, you know, and then maybe you'll notice you go faster running because you've got access to the front of your body and things like that. So there'll be a knock-on effect, but that doesn't mean to say it solves the problem or the whatever. We don't know.
I remember now what it was that I was going to say. I was curious to know whether, because you were saying you assess people, and then you can point out like, oh, that shoulder's slightly higher than that, or that hip's doing that funny thing or whatever. Is that in and of itself kind of enough? It's almost like what I was wondering was, you know, when I have conversations with people and I bring awareness to a thought pattern that or you know, like an idea or a belief that someone hasn't seen because it's just so ingrained.
Oh yeah.
And just shining light on it is enough. That's it. It's like that's the job is done almost, because there's now awareness on it. And I wondered how much that plays a part in how you work, and that, you know, almost by pointing out these things, the mind can then do something about it almost.
Yeah, no, you know, that is really, yeah, that is true actually, because even if somebody is really unaware, and that's all of us, because the body, like I said, abstract. I could stand someone in front of a mirror and go, have you noticed any of these things? And they say, absolutely not. And it's shocking to them, because it's like, that's my body. But yeah, so say, for example, if someone is walking and they haven't got their foot's not flat on the ground, it's like rolling out. And I'll say, oh, can you feel that you've got different foot pressures as you're standing? And they'll go, oh yeah, like, yeah, this foot, the weight's on the outside and this foot feels like flat on the ground. And I'd be like, amazing. So just even if you just took that bit of information and go, right, every time you do a gym exercise, pay attention to that foot. Like, what happens if you make that foot flat on the ground? Or whatever you do in life. And often then when someone comes and goes, now I can't unnotice that, because now it's like, so there is. But some people, and a small percentage of people, like, no, but you know, but so I would say definitely, even that bit of information, even if they never come back to see me again, whatever, it's like, if for me, it's just like that little, like, look at this and this, just take your attention somewhere else. And even if that's my job done then, because it's like, even if you go and do that and you observe it, great.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what I was thinking about when you did the analysis of me walking, and I was thinking back, because it was quite a long time ago, and my memory was shocking. Yeah, I can't remember what happened, but I know that whatever was going on isn't going on anymore. So I'm just, you know, it's like, I mean, okay,
but we don't know what it. It's like, totally. And also, so many things can just come and go. And we also, and I love how, but we often say, oh, it was because of that. You know, I did that, and then we actually don't know. And I love it's in it, and we'll always say, oh, it's because of that. Then now that's better, or that, or I changed my running shoes, and now that. And there's always like a magic thing that changed something, but you don't know. Like, there is no fact, there's no objective truth to any of that. But what if it was just that you were just given some information and someone said, yeah, this is going to make you feel better, like, go and do it. You're like, oh great, I feel, you know, I
feel better.
Placebo. I believe you. I'll just go and do it. Yeah,
I mean, I find that utterly fascinating, because the whole placebo effect is so well known and understood in the medical, you know, arena, and yet it's totally bypassed by most people. Like, the power the mind has. If you were to say to someone, oh, your shoulder's out of alignment, you know, blah blah blah, whatever, and now it's fine, that could be enough for them to then have no, but you know, like, we just don't know, do we?
Yeah. Although but in that realm, I'd be like, no, I don't know if you could believe structure to be like, no, I'd have to, if I was like, no, I'd have to be like, to believe the structure, if it's still structurally in that position, it's like, no, nothing's changed.
No,
don't believe that you can make yourself better like that. But there's definitely there's more innate, like, other, no, the belief that it could just be better. But I think the belief in, like, if more like, if the belief was like, yeah, those trainers got rid of my calf pain or whatever, great, then that's fine to believe whatever. But not like, I'd never say to someone, oh yeah, this,
oh gosh, no, I wasn't.
Oh yeah, like, oh yeah, you'll be fine now, everything's gone.
Oh, I love it.
I'm conscious that's your only cough.
Yeah, sorry. I knew it would come at some point. It has been so interesting. I could talk to you for the entire afternoon.
That was lovely. We'll do it again.
Yeah. So if people are interested in what you've shared, how can they find out more about you? And do you work online, or is it just in your clinic?
Yeah, in fact, there's someone in Claire's group that I work with online. She's in Munich, actually. Amazing. And I've worked with 2 of her kids as well. She's fantastic. But yeah, no, work online, easy, and it's easy because I always get people to send me a gait video. I can assess it. I do a voiceover of it, and then I send it back to them so they can see it. And then I just literally phone, WhatsApp video, just get you to stand in a room and just show me. I'll ask you to show me some stuff, and then we'll just go from there. So yeah, that's I work like that, or I work in Bristol in the UK. I have a home studio, and but yeah, even if someone just wanted advice, just give me a call. But yeah, my website is Move Well with Sally Trussler. I'm on Instagram. Just
amazing.
Yeah.
I'll put all the details in the bit below the podcast and video, so people can click on that and find you. But it's been really fascinating.
Amazing to chat to you, and it's so nice to see you again. It's been ages.
It has too long. Thank you so much, Sally.
All right, my love.
Bye.
Take care.